a Michigan housewife named Terry Ricotta, who was a family values activist, found it so offensive, she began a letter writing campaign to the show's sponsors to try to get them to withdraw their sponsorship and for Fox to drop the show. It all started because her kids were watching the show and laughing, and so she went into the room like, "What are you guys watching?" and ended up watching this episode.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be doing the next episode of Married with Children. Now, for those of you who are new to the podcast, I just want to give you a brief agenda here. We start with the potent notables, which are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then I do the episode overview, which is me talking about everything that happened in the episode, so spoiler alert. And then we do the rank, where I rank the episode based on 5 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, all to find out what's the best sitcom of all time. And today we're ranking the 6th episode of the 3rd season of Married with Children, titled Her Cups Runneth Over, written by Marcy Vosberg and Sandy Sprung and directed by Jerry Cohen. All right, let's find out how this one stacked up, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So this episode aired on Sunday, January 15th, 1989, and Married with Children is continuing its strong showing, getting a 10.3 rating, which was the same as it got last week. It remains the highest rated show in Fox's Sunday lineup. Fox and Married with Children were a little-known network and show until, because of this episode, a Michigan housewife named Terry Ricotta, who was a family values activist, found it so offensive, she began a letter writing campaign to the show's sponsors to try to get them to withdraw their sponsorship and for Fox to drop the show. It all started because her kids were watching the show and laughing, and so she went into the room like, "What are you guys watching?" and ended up watching this episode.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
Now, a few sponsors did end up canceling their commercials, but her efforts ended up having the exact opposite effect of what she wanted. The story spread like wildfire and ended up giving Married with Children a huge jump in the ratings. It actually made the show a huge hit and put the Fox network on the map. All right, so I just thought that was pretty awesome. I got one more potent notable for you. Devin DeVazquez, the lady in white lingerie who asks Al's opinion on her apparel, was Playboy's Playmate of the Month for June 1985. So we've got kind of a string of this happening on this show where they're inviting Playboy Playmates. All right, but those are the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. We open with a seemingly happy Peggy dancing and lip-syncing to Aretha Franklin's R-E-S-P-E-C-T. But, and I suppose not surprisingly, we're going to find out that this happiness is going to be short-lived. Because the camera is going to pan to the stairs where the kids, Kelly and Bud, are watching on and basically saying every year it's the same thing. Mom's happy it's her birthday, and then she's going to realize she's old and get sad. Well, they're right. Peggy's going to start getting down in the dumps once the radio announcer says that if you remember that song, Respect, when it came out, then you're super old because it came out 20 years ago. So that one's for you, Grandma. To compound her sudden turn into depression, Al is going to come home and have the audacity to ask her how it's going. She doesn't sugarcoat it. She says the best years of her life are past, and the worst part is she spent them all with him. But just as soon as she's saying that, just as quickly she turns to him and is like, looking for reassurance, "Do you still find me attractive, Al?" And then we get the first joke that made me laugh. He says that Peggy's still the same knee in the groin that she was when she was 16. But then she's like, "No, you didn't say it with feeling, so you're an insensitive pig of a man." Now, I don't think she's wrong in that statement that he's an insensitive pig of a man, but I don't think this was actually the right time to use that insult. Also, was that a compliment? I mean, she seemed to take it as one at first, but who wants to be a knee in the groin? And then we get a fun bit here where Peggy's kind of spiraling and she's trying to figure out something to do that will make her happier. While she's trying to figure it out, Al already knows and he's pulling out his wallet. And he's not wrong. She ends up saying she wants to go shopping. She wants to shop till he drops. But she doesn't want Al to mistake this. This is not the birthday present. She still expects a birthday present. And this year, she wants something different. And then, of course, you get your typical Al, "I hate having sex with my pretty wife" joke. When he responds, he only knows one way to do it. Now, what I found really interesting about this is that he makes this joke, I laughed, the audience in the studio laughed, but then Peggy gets 2 barbs in return. The first being, "And one day maybe you'll get it right." and the other was her saying that she wants something that'll last longer than 3 minutes. What I found really interesting was the fact that the audience basically booed at it. So they laughed at Al and they booed at Peggy. I'm not sure I like that. But Peg's gonna leave to go shopping, and when she leaves, Al asks the kids, "Why didn't you tell me it was her birthday? If I had known, I wouldn't have come home." And I love that Bud and Kelly are entirely nonplussed that their dad basically just said that he wouldn't come home if he knew it was his wife, their mother's birthday, or the fact that he didn't know it. What they end up doing is they actually tell him that they love him because he's aging gracefully, basically. And then Bud's gonna ask for money. And when Al's like, "I don't have any money," because she just took it, basically, he says, "Sorry, son." And Bud goes, "Don't call me that." So Bud's gonna leave. He's gonna storm off because he didn't get any money, and Kelly's gonna stay. So Al's gonna take the opportunity. He's gonna say, "Hey, Kelly, can you help me out and give me advice on what to get your mother? Heck, maybe her being a girl will actually come in handy for once." Yikes, Al. And then Christina Applegate does a fun little bit here where she starts talking and then just loses the train of thought in the middle of it, which is a classic Kelly's dumb joke, but also kind of feels like what I do on this all the time, and Antonio puts bloopers up of it. So I guess I'm a little Kelly myself.
Yeah. Just not as pretty.
But Al's gonna actually figure out the perfect gift for Peg when she comes home and she's all upset because things just keep getting worse for her. She found out today that her bra, the fancy figure 327, has been discontinued. Al, trying to make her feel better, is like, "Oh, Peg, your boobs are great." And she goes, "Oh, you still love your little squeezies?" I've never heard them called squeezies, but I love it. But the happiness for Peg is short-lived, as she's still devastated about losing her bra, and she just wishes that somebody could understand her plight. Because when she asks Al what he thinks of the replacement bras she got at the mall, he's like, "What do I think? I think that on my birthday, I don't run to you with my underwear looking for help." To which Peggy responds, "Maybe you should, because if you did, I could tell you that the big hole goes in the front." Naturally, we get Marcy coming over next, and she's very understanding. I mean, she literally is coming over because she heard about the bra being discontinued. Actually, this episode is one of the first where I really felt like Marcy and Steve were really friends to Peggy and Al. And I think it's kind of nice that Marcy's there for Peg. But of course, Marcy's gonna make a feminist comment. She's gonna be like, "I don't even know why we need bras." And then Al says, "I think it's to keep your breasts off the plate when you eat," which was hilarious. And then we get some more typical Married with Children jokes, with Marcy taking a feminist stance about bras, and then Peggy making fun of Al's job. And this is all until Marcy and Peggy finally leave and go upstairs, and then Steve comes over. And when Steve shows up, Al greets him at the door with, "I need a bra," which is probably not what he expected to hear when he came to the door. But Al insists, "My wife's bra was discontinued, and yet she lives on." But Steve actually has a solution for him. He says they should go to Francine's of Hollywood up in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, because they have everything there. Now, Al isn't sure if he wants to go all the way to Wisconsin just to get a bra for Peggy, but then he hears Peggy go, "Al, hold me," from upstairs, and that makes his decision for him. He's like, "Let's go." So off Al and Steve go. Now, when they arrive at Francine's, there are a bunch of good-looking women there, and Al's all excited. He's like, "I just knew it. I knew women actually looked like this." Now, that's a good joke, but geez, Al, Peggy is actually a really beautiful woman. But either way, this is the part of the episode where shit just gets weird. Like, we get several gay jokes, even one where Al is like, "I could do better than Steve if I were gay," and that Steve actually gets not just insulted, but actually hurt by this. But then Steve is gonna accost a mannequin and give us a grape joke about how the mannequin was asking for it. Just look at how she was dressed. Then we get a guy coming into the store who's clearly meant to be gay, wearing an actual crown, and Al's like, "And they wonder why we call them queens." And he's saying this to the only male person that's working in the store, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, there ought to be a law." But then he moves from behind the counter. As he's walking away, he's just wearing panties and like a garter.
Didn't see that coming.
And then on top of that, a woman is going to randomly ask Al if he thinks if he were her boyfriend that he would like her in this lingerie she has on. So she steps out from behind the curtain and she's in white lingerie. And then she's like, "You know what? Is it better with or without the bra?" And just takes her bra off in front of him. And Al passes out. And I'm just like, what is going on in this episode? Now, all the while that they're at that store, Marcy and Peggy have a stripper come to Peggy's house for her birthday, who, after doing some dancing, is eventually just sitting on the couch watching TV with them. And he's still there sitting with them when Bud comes home, and the first thing Bud asks is Dad dead? Then when Peggy says he's not, he tries to blackmail her into a better allowance, and Peggy Peggy's like, it doesn't matter. He's just a rental dick, basically. This show is just wild. But it turns out Bud and Kelly have bought Peggy birthday gifts. Aw, nice kids, right? Now, Kelly's gift was an Al Jolson record, which was ill-received, and I assume it's because they're making some statement about Kelly's thinking that she would like this because she's old or something. But then we get a much more clear old joke when Bud's gift is an anti-wrinkle cream. But shortly after Peggy receives those gifts, Al and Steve are gonna arrive back. And Peggy's gonna be like, Al, where have you been? It's my birthday. And Al says, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. And Marcy just lights up. She knows it means that they went to Francine's. And she asks Steve, did you go to Francine's? And Steve is coy and asks, have you been a good little girl? She likes it. And her and Steve leave, I assume, to go have sex in Al's lawn. That's when Peggy finds out that Al actually went out and bought 10 of her discontinued bras, which was actually a sweet gift. Naturally, Al, being sweet, has given Peggy some extra lubrication, which she wants to use before she loses it. Al at first is against it, but then he remembers the boobies he saw in Wisconsin and decides, you know what, I will go bang my wife. Of course, the final joke is that the stripper is still upstairs and in their bedroom. But that's the whole episode. The one that got a stay-at-home mom in Michigan all upset and helped turn Married with Children from a popular for Fox show into a nationally popular show. So let's see how it ranked.
Oh, wait.
So the ranks were ranked the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, and then I also have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the rankings here, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story, and the story is that it's Peg's birthday, and she's a little depressed to be getting older. Well, I suppose the story is really trying to find the discontinued bras that Peg really likes. Either way, it's not a super strong story, but it's serviceable. I think it really works for Married with Children, so I gave it a 3.5. So that brings us to acting, and there's nothing wrong with the acting in this one. But let's face it, the women in Francine's weren't hired for their acting abilities. Katie, Amanda, David, and Ed were all great. David Faustino was pretty decent. Christina Applegate was good. I gave it a 3.5. So that brings us to dialogue. I like that they didn't entirely rely on the outlandish jokes that they usually do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were still plenty of Married with Children style jokes, but I like that they stuck a few in there that were more subtle, so I gave it a 4. So that brings us to episode coherence. Everything that happened in Francine's felt a little outside of the realm of reality, but that's really the only thing that was any semblance of incoherent. The characters felt correct and coherent with the series. It was good, so I gave it a 4. And that brings us to character relatability. Calmly asking if your dad's dead because you see your mom with a stripper, and said mom being totally cool with her kids seeing her with a stripper, is a little outside of relatable. However, the general feelings about being depressed about getting older are definitely relatable, so I gave it a 3.75. So that brings us to the laugh counter. We've got some decent rankings here so far, so assuming we have a decent laugh counter, it should be in the top 3 tiers, and it got me 17 times, which is pretty good. This puts the episode total at a 35.75, which puts it in the Holy Grail. For the series, the average is now at a 33.5, which puts it into, I'd watch it again. And if you're ranking along with me, please drop your rankings into the comments. I'd love to see what you guys have here, especially the laugh counter. But thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other Married with Children episode rankings, or check out any of the other sitcom or movie rankings that I've done. You can see the updated rankings on the website at therankedpodcast.com, where you can also email me at john@therankedpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. And if you'd like to become a supporting patron, you can do that at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. But I will leave you with this. Why was Al out of breath when he gave Peg her present?
Why is that?
Because he got there just under the wire. Under wire.
Move this man!
Yeah. We open with an We open with a seemingly happy Peggy dancing and singing
That's okay. Take your time.